Anybody can appear calm when life is easy, but the real test begins when you are disrespected, ignored, betrayed, or pushed to your limit. In that moment, the world is not destroying you, your uncontrolled mind is. One moment of anger can ruin what took years to build, but one moment of calm can save your future. The difference is not luck, it is training. If your mind is weak, the world will feel loud. If your mind is undisciplined, every delay will feel like an attack. Every opinion will feel personal. Every inconvenience will feel unbearable. And most people never realize this. They think the problem is the world. They think the problem is other people. They think peace will come when life becomes easier, when people become kinder, when circumstances become more fair. But that day rarely comes. Life does not gather itself together just to protect your emotions. Life tests you in traffic. It tests you in betrayal. It tests you in silence. It tests you when you are misunderstood, when you are ignored, when you are tired, when nobody claps for your effort, when things do not go according to your plan. And in those moments, your real training is revealed. A calm mind is not something you are born with. It is something you build. It is trained. It is forged. It is strengthened through awareness, through discomfort, through repetition, through honest observation of yourself. And this is why many people remain mentally fragile for years. They want peace, but they do not want discipline. They want clarity, but they continue feeding confusion. They want emotional stability, but they still allow every outside event to enter their inner world without permission. So their mood changes with the weather. Their confidence changes with people's opinions. Their energy changes with every small disappointment. This is not freedom. This is dependency. Look carefully at your life and ask yourself one simple question. How much of your suffering comes from reality? And how much of it comes from the way your mind reacts to reality? Because these are not the same thing. One harsh word may arrive from another person, but then your mind repeats it 100 times. One delay may happen, but then your mind creates 10 future disasters. One rejection may come, but then your mind turns it into a story about your worth. The event happens once, but through lack of training, the mind continues the pain long after the moment has passed. This is why inner work matters. Not because it makes you special, not because it makes you look wise, but because an untrained mind can destroy your peace, even inside a beautiful life. You can have opportunities, people who care for you, health, talent, and still live in agitation if your mind is constantly restless. And you can go through challenge, loss, uncertainty, and still remain grounded if your mind has learned how to stay steady. So the real power is not in controlling life. The real power is in learning not to be controlled by it. Many people believe calmness means weakness. They think being calm means being passive, soft, indifferent, or unable to defend yourself. But true calmness is none of that. True calmness is strength under control. It is fire that does not burn the wrong things. It is power that does not need to shout. It is clarity that does not become confused just because others are emotional. A calm person is not someone who feels nothing. A calm person is someone who feels deeply, sees clearly, and still chooses wisely. When someone insults you and you immediately react, who is in control? When one unexpected event ruins your whole day, who is in control? When your mind cannot sit quietly for even a few minutes without reaching for distraction, who is in control? You may think you are free because you can do what you want, say what you want, go where you want. But if your emotions pull you in every direction, and your impulses rule your behavior, then you are not free. You are being driven. A disciplined mind gives you space, and that space changes everything. Between what happens and how you respond, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom, your dignity, your maturity, your future. But most people never develop that space. Their reaction is instant. Their anger is immediate. Their fear is automatic. Their habits are unconscious. So life keeps pressing the same buttons, and they keep producing the same suffering. The world learns how to control you by studying what easily disturbs you. If your peace can be stolen by small things, then your peace was never yours. So train your mind, not only when life is peaceful, especially when it is not. Start by understanding this. Calmness is not created in comfort. It is revealed in friction. Anyone can seem centered when everything is going their way. Anyone can speak about peace when they are praised, understood, rested, and safe. But can you remain composed when you are criticized unfairly? Can you breathe deeply when plans collapse? Can you stay respectful when others become disrespectful? Can you keep your inner balance when life becomes uncertain? This is where the practice begins to matter. The mind must be trained the same way the body is trained. If you never challenge it, it remains weak. If you constantly indulge it, it becomes demanding. If you obey every craving, every impulse, every emotional storm, then you teach the mind that it is the master, and you are the servant. This is why small acts of discipline are so powerful. Waking up when you said you would wake up. Sitting in silence even when your mind wants noise. Holding your tongue when you want to prove a point. Continuing your work when your feelings tell you to stop. These moments seem small, but they build inner authority. They teach the mind that it cannot command you whenever it wants. Most people wait until they are in crisis before they realize they have never trained their inner world. Then when loss comes, they fall apart. When heartbreak comes, they cannot stand. When pressure comes, they break from within. Not because pain is abnormal, but because their mind has never been taught how to carry it. A strong mind does not remove pain. It increases your capacity to hold it without losing yourself. And let us be honest. Many people do not want calmness. They want stimulation. They say they want peace, but they are addicted to drama, addicted to urgency, addicted to emotional highs and lows because stillness feels unfamiliar. Silence feels uncomfortable. Simplicity feels boring. They have spent so much time living in reaction that peace feels empty. But that is only because they have not yet learned how rich silence is. They have not yet discovered that beneath the noise of their thoughts, there is a steadier life waiting for them. You do not need to react to everything. This alone can change your life. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every invitation deserves your presence. Not every battle deserves your participation. There is great maturity in restraint. There is great intelligence in knowing when to remain still. A person who reacts to everything becomes exhausted. A person who chooses carefully where to place attention becomes powerful. Attention is your life force. Wherever it goes, your energy follows. So if your attention is always given to gossip, conflict, comparison, outrage, fear, and other people's behavior, do not be surprised when your mind feels scattered. The quality of your inner life is shaped by what you repeatedly feed it. If you feed it noise, it becomes noisy. If you feed it resentment, it becomes bitter. If you feed it comparison, it becomes insecure. If you feed it stillness, discipline, observation, and truth, it begins to settle. And this settling is beautiful, because slowly you stop needing the world to arrange itself perfectly before you can breathe. You stop needing people to behave the way you prefer before you can feel stable. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop chasing emotional certainty from people who cannot even provide it for themselves. You begin to carry your own center. That is what people feel when they encounter someone with inner stability. It is not that this person has no problems. It is that their spirit is not easily moved by temporary storms. They have learned that thoughts are not commands. Emotions are not facts. Impulses are not wisdom. And because of that, they do not follow every passing inner wave. They watch it. They breathe through it. They let it pass. This is mastery. When anger comes, observe it before you speak. Feel how quickly it wants expression. Feel how it wants to use your mouth, your hands, your posture, your tone. Anger always wants movement. It wants speed. It wants release. But calmness begins when you no longer obey the first impulse. Calmness begins when you can say to yourself, I see what is happening inside me, but I do not have to become it. That is an extraordinary moment, because now the emotion is present, but it is not ruling the room. The same is true for fear. Fear loves imagination. It loves unfinished information. It loves future stories. It takes one uncertainty and turns it into 10 disasters. It makes the body tense over events that have not happened. It steals peace from the present to pay for a future that may never arrive. So when fear appears, bring yourself back. Not with force, but with awareness. What is actually here right now? What is truly happening in this moment? Often, the mind is living somewhere the body is not. Training your mind means bringing it back to reality again and again until presence becomes stronger than projection. This is why the breath is such a powerful teacher. Your breath is always in the present. It does not breathe in yesterday. It does not breathe in tomorrow. It keeps returning to now. And when the mind is overwhelmed, the breath becomes an anchor. Not magic, not an escape. An anchor. Something steady you can return to while the inner waves are moving. One conscious breath can interrupt anger. 2 conscious breaths can soften panic. 3 conscious breaths can prevent you from saying something that would create regret. In that way, the breath is not small. It is a doorway back to self-command. But calmness also requires honesty. You cannot become peaceful while constantly lying to yourself. If you are deeply attached, admit it. If you are jealous, admit it. If you want approval too much, admit it. If you are afraid of being alone, admit it. If your identity depends on being seen in a certain way, admit it. The ego hates this kind of honesty because it wants to appear advanced while remaining unexamined. But healing begins where pretending ends. Most of the chaos in people's lives is not only because of what they feel. It is because they are unconscious of what drives them. They say they want peace, but they are still chasing superiority. They say they want love, but they are still acting from fear. They say they want to grow, but they still protect the very habits that keep them trapped. You cannot build a calm life on top of unconscious patterns. So sit with yourself long enough to see what is really there. Maybe you are not disturbed by this person. Maybe you are disturbed because they touched your pride. Maybe you are not suffering because life is unfair. Maybe you are suffering because life is not obeying your expectations. Maybe you are not angry because of the present event. Maybe you are carrying years of unprocessed frustration, and this moment simply opened the door. The mind becomes calmer when it is understood, not judged, understood. And understanding yourself requires silence. Real silence, not silence while scrolling. Not silence while waiting for the next distraction. Silence where you actually meet your own mind. This is difficult for many people because the moment they become still, they meet discomfort. They meet restlessness. They meet sadness. They meet the unfinished business inside themselves. So they run again into entertainment, noise, social media, constant talking, constant consuming. But whatever you do not face within will eventually appear in how you speak, how you react, how you love, how you work, and how you suffer. Silence is not empty. Silence is revealing. It shows you what has been driving you beneath the surface. It shows you where you are still dependent. It shows you what your mind does when there is nothing to cling to. And at first, that can be humbling. But stay. Stay long enough and something begins to change. The thoughts still come, but you stop treating each one like truth. The emotions still rise, but you stop treating each one like an emergency. The mind still moves, but you are no longer dragged behind it. This is how inner steadiness is built. Do not underestimate repetition. Transformation is rarely dramatic in the beginning. It looks ordinary. It looks like choosing not to answer in anger today. It looks like returning to the breath when your thoughts race. It looks like pausing before you speak. It looks like getting up and doing what must be done, even when your mood is low. It looks like sitting with discomfort, instead of escaping it immediately. These things do not impress people, but they build a person who cannot easily be shaken. A lot of suffering comes from wanting the external world to match your internal preferences. But life is not here to satisfy every preference. Sometimes you will be delayed. Sometimes you will be forgotten. Sometimes you will lose. Sometimes people will misunderstand your intentions. Sometimes your kindness will not be returned. Sometimes your effort will not be recognized. If your peace depends on all of that going smoothly, you will live in constant instability. But if your peace comes from a trained inner life, then you can move through these things with dignity. This does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean becoming detached in a lifeless way. It means becoming rooted. There is a difference. A rooted person still loves, still cares, still shows emotion, still feels pain. But they do not collapse every time life changes shape. They bend without breaking. They feel without drowning. They care without losing their center. That is the kind of strength worth building. Sometimes the calmest thing you can do is say nothing. There is a kind of wisdom in not needing the last word, in not needing to win every argument, in not needing to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Protect your energy, not with bitterness, but with discernment. Not every conversation is a bridge. Some are traps. Not every audience deserves your truth. Some only want your reaction. Learn the difference. There will be moments when everything inside you wants to defend, justify, chase, fix, control. Be careful in those moments. Because when the mind is agitated, it is desperate for movement. It believes doing something will end the discomfort. So it sends the message, text now, speak now, prove yourself now, make them understand now. But urgency is not always wisdom. Sometimes the highest form of intelligence is to wait until the waters inside you become clear again. Do not make permanent decisions from temporary storms. And also remember this. Calmness is not only for the hard moments. It changes the good moments too. When the mind is calm, joy becomes deeper. Because it is not mixed with fear of losing it. Love becomes purer, because it is not mixed with constant possession. Work becomes stronger because it is not constantly interrupted by inner drama. Rest becomes real because the body is no longer carrying the weight of mental noise all the time. A calm mind does not reduce life. It lets you experience it more fully. So when you train your mind, you are not becoming less human. You are becoming less ruled by the most chaotic parts of yourself. You are becoming someone who can remain open without becoming weak, focused without becoming rigid, peaceful without becoming passive. This is not a performance for others. It is a relationship with yourself. The world today profits from your distraction. It profits from your outrage. It profits from your insecurity. It profits when you are impulsive, because then you are easier to influence. So to become calm is also a form of quiet rebellion. You are refusing to hand over your attention to every force that wants a piece of your mind. You are refusing to let algorithms, opinions, trends, and noise become the architects of your inner state. You are taking responsibility for your consciousness. And responsibility is important. Because one day you will realize, no one is coming to manage your inner world for you. No one can breathe for you. No one can observe your thoughts for you. No one can sit in stillness for you. No one can build your discipline from the outside. Guidance can help. Wisdom can point, but the training is yours. The repetition is yours. The decision, again and again, to return to awareness instead of reaction, that is yours. At first, this may feel difficult. Your mind will resist. It will tell you this is too slow, too boring, too uncomfortable. It will beg for old patterns because old patterns are familiar, even when they are destructive. Stay with the practice anyway, because every time you do, you weaken chaos and strengthen presence. Every time you choose observation over immediate reaction, your mind learns a new way. Every time you sit through discomfort without escaping, your capacity grows. Every time you refuse to let one bad moment define the entire day, you reclaim authority over your life. Think of the people who have hurt themselves and others, simply because they did not know how to sit with emotion. One surge of anger, one wave of shame, one moment of panic, and they act. Then 1 minute becomes 1 year of regret. This is why training the mind is not a luxury. It is not decoration. It is a necessity. A person who cannot govern themselves becomes dangerous to their own future. So learn to pause. Learn to breathe. Learn to observe. Learn to let emotions move through you without turning them into identity. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are not your sadness. These are experiences passing through awareness. But when you cling to them and call them self, they gain power over you. Instead, meet them with steadiness. Let them come. Let them teach. Let them leave. And when you fail, because sometimes you will, do not turn one moment of unconsciousness into another. Do not react badly and then spend the next day hating yourself. That is simply the ego wearing a different mask. See it clearly. Learn. Return. The path is not about never being disturbed. It is about recovering your center more quickly, more consciously, more honestly each time. There is great peace in no longer expecting yourself to be perfect. Perfection creates tension. Awareness creates growth. So be patient, but do not be lazy. Be compassionate, but do not excuse your patterns forever. Hold yourself with kindness and firmness at the same time. That is how real discipline develops. Not through self-hatred. Not through harshness. Through respect. Through the understanding that your mind is powerful, and therefore it deserves training. Over time, something beautiful happens. The things that once controlled you begin to lose their grip. The comment that once ruined your whole day passes through more lightly. The delay that once created panic becomes manageable. The urge to prove yourself weakens. The need for immediate validation softens. The silence that once felt unbearable becomes nourishing. You begin to trust yourself in difficult moments because you have practiced meeting them. And that trust is priceless. Because in the end, people spend so much of their life trying to find safety in places that cannot provide it. In praise, in possessions, in status, in control, in outcomes. But real safety comes when your own mind becomes a place you can live in peacefully. When you can sit alone without feeling chased by yourself. When you can enter pressure without abandoning your principles. When you can face uncertainty without collapsing into fear. That is when something inside you becomes unshakable. Train for that. Train not so that life becomes easier, but so that you become steadier. Train not so that nobody can hurt you, but so that pain does not turn you into someone you do not respect. Train not so that challenges disappear, but so that your clarity remains when they arrive. Let other people continue living at the mercy of every mood, every opinion, every situation. You choose something greater. You choose inner command. You choose presence. You choose the long path of discipline that leads to freedom. And on that path, there will be moments when nobody sees your progress. Nobody applauds your restraint. Nobody knows how much effort it took not to react, not to give in, not to collapse, not to chase, not to speak from hurt. But you will know. Your nervous system will know. Your spirit will know. And slowly, Your life will begin to reflect that invisible work. Not because you forced the world to change, but because you stopped allowing the world to dictate the condition of your mind. That is where calm begins. Not in escaping difficulty, but in meeting it differently. Not in controlling everything outside you, but in understanding what is happening within you. Not in becoming emotionless, but in becoming stable enough that emotions no longer throw you off the path every time they arrive. So the next time life tests you, do not ask first, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What is this moment showing me about the condition of my mind?" Is your attention scattered? Is your ego bruised? Is your patience weak? Is your fear leading? Is your identity too attached to comfort, control, or being understood? These questions are powerful because they turn pain into practice. And once pain becomes practice, even the hard moments start serving your growth. That is when you stop being just another person reacting to life. That is when you begin becoming someone who can stand in the fire and still remain inwardly still. That is when the mind, once noisy and impulsive, begins to bow to awareness. That is when your presence carries weight, because it is no longer borrowed from circumstances. And when that happens, even your silence begins to speak.